This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it's time for Care Notes from Cherished Companions and Doug Wilber. And Doug, you always seem to have a good subject to talk about, so lead me down the road.
There's always something to talk about, especially with this field. Well, I guess what I wanted to talk about is what does good look like? And in this field, kind of understanding what good looks like is really important if you're looking for care. And I don't care when it comes to elder services or helping with seniors. The truth is that that this is in many ways applicable no matter what, whether it be in home care or in a facility type of care, or if you're doing daycare with someone. There are certain characteristics, I think, that are pretty universal. And so you know, if you're not thinking about this for home care, think about the similar type of ideas or principles for doing whatever type of care you're doing with a parent or a loved one or a spouse, in this case. So what does good look like? The first thing I want to, I guess, probably talk about, and we did a little bit of pre-talking before. The truth is that it's hard to do what we do well, and it's not one thing that has to go right. It's 1,000 things that has to go right in order for good care to be delivered. And that's not easy. So I will tell you a couple things. One is people come and go in this business like,
right,
like crazy. Yeah, I mean, and the reason is anyone can kind of hang up their shingle in the state of Ohio. Now you have to have a license, but let's say you qualify for doing the license. And it's relatively low threshold for doing that. But once you're in the business, it's hard to do what we do well. So most businesses that are doing this, agencies, don't get very big, and you really do need to get big, in order to have scale. And scale is really, really important because it allows you to do what you do better. And so many agencies, they have like 10 clients or something like that. And you might think, oh, that's good, it's personal. And no, it probably isn't good, because you're not going to be able to sustain keeping your caregivers busy. And so you'll have turnover, and it won't look pretty. Usually it causes problems. So, that's why you have a lot of companies that kind of come and go, come and go, come and go. And so, but in order to do what we do, caring for people, you have to be able to get the right people. You have to be the preferred provider, and so you need to get to that size where people know you and know, hey, this is the company we want to work for.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things that we've been able to do is become that company that people want to work for. It's different than it's ever been because of the internet. So the internet has created a thing where people not only get their information from their cousin who works for a company, but they look at online and they see reviews and other things, and that's part of what makes them join. And then what benefits and other things people have, all of that combined to make a difference. And but to do what we've done it's building and building and building and building until you get the right mix and the right um, uh, bunch of right things that you're doing that actually make a difference. And it builds kind of this mass. It's the idea that I don't know if you've ever read Good to Great.
No, I don't think so.
I highly recommend it. But in Good to Great, it's this concept of the flywheel. Flywheel's real heavy, and you push it, and it moves very slow at first. But if you can get that thing going and push and push and push, this heavy, massive wheel will kind of take on a life of its own.
Okay.
But it takes a long time to get there. And the concept of the book was, there's a lot of good companies, people that do things okay, but to become a great company, one of the legacy type of companies, you have to, there's something different about those companies. You have to build that flywheel concept where it becomes such a culture that it just does what it does really well. I worked at Procter and Gamble, and Procter and Gamble is absolutely one of those legacy companies that does what they do really well, and it has its own culture. And you go into P&G, and one of the things you'll notice, there's a lot of smart people there. I mean, a lot of very bright people, and it attracts really good people, and then they have high expectations, and you come into a culture that produces, that does well, that where and it's fun. It's actually a wonderful culture to work for because you're around people that are passionate, that are caring, and really love what they're doing, and really like having other people that have a passion for
Sure.
work and doing the right thing and stuff like that. And so you don't have to motivate people at P&G for the most part. There's a lot of really self-motivated people, with that. But one of the things I've recently heard about a company that had moved into the Cleveland area. They had taken over, one of the local companies that and they're kind of moving along, trying to implement their plan. And I just heard that they were doing massive layoffs, and the local company really never got big. And so I assume what had happened, and this is an assumption, is that they had this overhead trying to build what they do, didn't really understand the market well, and then all of a sudden realize we're underwater. We have to be profitable. They're part of a national company. Let's wipe out the staff and just come down to what a small skeleton or whatever that so that our numbers will look okay, be albeit small, with that. Um, and um, the part of the issue I've found with large companies is I mean, not large companies, but like national companies,
Sure.
is what they don't get is this is local. It's a very local business. You have to understand your market really well. You have to understand your clientele and what they need and how they need it. And I will tell you this, the area we focus really on the eastern part of the Cleveland
Sure.
area. Well, the eastern part of the Cleveland area is different from Akron,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and it's different from um, Lorraine. It's different from the other areas, and and frankly, I know just because of the work I've done, I know the whole market, even the West Side, very well. So
Sure.
I know Akron actually really well because of previous work. So we could move into those areas, but I know that I would not handle things in, the other markets the same that I handle the market that we predominantly are
Sure.
working in, because it's a different group, a different clientele, and
Right.
you have to handle that differently. So it's a strange thing, because when you do what we do, you not only have to be big, but you have to be small, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does. And, I've seen it in the past when I was working with some of the agencies and going in and doing podcasting that um, when they were originally local owned, there was a camaraderie. There was, um, everybody knew everybody's name, just like they said at Cheers. It was wonderful. But then when they got bought out, when I saw some of the administrative staff leaving.
Mhm.
Now, you have to take into consideration that the people who are living there, those people have become their family. And
Right.
now they're leaving, and that leaves this question mark as to what's going on, you know? And then new people come in, and, you know, as we age, we get a little bit more skeptical when things change on us. Um, And I've always said, that if I was to go into, um, a facility, I want it to be homey. I want the people there to be committed to being there.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a company that I got to know a lot of the people in the company, and they were trying to do something where they were trying to, like, schedule remotely, from far away, with people who didn't really know the market and didn't know the caregivers, other things like that. And I thought, I don't think this is a great model. I think there's going to be issues eventually, and with that, because that kind of local, large but small,
Right.
is really, really important. Because, like, uh, I'll give you, this is a silly example, but it's not silly. So I there was someone that needed, there was a caregiver that needed an Uber ride. Okay. And so, getting an Uber ride, they, have it, but the Uber driver was trying to find out where they were going. And it was one of those things where there were different streets. It was like a north, a south, an east, a west, but all same
Right. Yeah.
name of the street, and so I ended up kind of overhearing this, and so I jumped in, and and because I know the area, I was able to direct this person, and literally the one area, was, to where they were going, was like a mile away from each other, but it wasn't a mile away. It was a
Ah,
mile away on how where the person was, where he had to get to, because they weren't interconnected. And I won't, you know, um, go into a lot of detail, but just to know that the only reason I could direct this Uber driver was because I knew
where it was.
where it
Yep.
was. I knew, how it was, and I was familiar with the area. And so, well, what difference does that make? Well, it makes all the difference in the world, because frankly, if that had not been done, and if I hadn't been in there, I'm sure the driver would just have forget it and just left, and then me being a pickle, and
Yep.
the connection would have been made, and the person, wouldn't have gotten to where they needed to get to, and so local is important, and so I'll emphasize local as one of the key factors. The other thing that I would, so, I think that's one of the differences. between a franchise and a local company
Sure.
is that very element, is that the franchises have a lot of cookie cutter approaches that are possible. A good part about a franchise is there is local ownership, but it still has this kind of national thing that can, cause it not to be as good, I think, as a well-run,
Sure.
company that is concentrated in a certain area. Um, the other thing is, caring, that is a differentiator. Yeah, you have heard my story, but I didn't need to start this company from a, a where I was at the time. When I made
Sure.
the decision to do this felt like a calling. This felt like, what, I can make a difference. I can give back. I can take what I had learned in for working at Procter and Gamble as long as I did, and I could use that in order to help others. And this is a new field. I felt like I could make an impact in this field in a very, very unique way. So, that's why I started the company, because I really wanted to have a model that was based on care. And I believe we've done that. 14 years, we have a very good track record. We always do the right thing when we're taking care of our clients. There have been times where we've lost money on a client because we did the right thing. And that's just our commitment. We integrity is at the core of what we do, and we're going to operate with integrity, with making sure that the best care is done for people that are out there. Well, you need to know, whoever is working with a company, again, whether it's home care or others, that this is a company that at its core cares, that they want to do the right thing, for the individuals that are there. And it's not just a business. The business is there to facilitate the care, to do the right thing for the people that are there. And if you have the right focus, you can do both. You can be very much about care, and you can still remain a viable business.
Sure.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that um, when you have a child and you need a babysitter or a nanny, um, we expect certain things and we're willing to pay for those things. Okay. But
Yeah.
as we get older, and I want to back that up, that typically babysitters, nannies, daycare centers, they do the right thing. Okay. Um, but we hear so much at senior care that people are getting hired just because they're a warm body. And I know you don't do that, because the people that I've met at through your company, they've been there long term. They pride themselves in what they do. They know
Yeah.
there's an open door policy to talk to you about any issues that come up. And I don't understand how people who are running some of these companies are willing to hire just a warm body. Is that who they want taking care of them someday? And I had this discussion with someone this morning. I said, it scares me that we hear more about our children than the elderly, and most of them don't need as much care as we think they do. We
Yeah.
just assume, oh, you're 90 years old and you can't live alone. A friend of mine in New York, she cares for her mother-in-law. But her mother-in-law turned 100 years old this past week. She lives alone. My friend goes and visits her every other day, and they have someone else who goes in every other day.
Yeah.
And this woman is capable of being on her own. Nobody chose to say to her when she turned 80 or 90, because of your age, you can't do it.
Right.
But yet, you can tell that my friend goes in there and she's nurturing.
Yeah.
And that's what we want as we grow older. We don't just want to be somebody that somebody says, turn over, I have to wash your back or something like that.
Yeah. And here's kind of the deal, I think, is you know, COVID has been a game changer in a kind of a negative way, but also in a differentiating way. And here's why, because um, for whatever reason, and you can discuss all the politics and the this and that of what's going on, but the truth is for some reason there aren't enough caregivers. Okay, and and because of that, it's created a desperation because you have a business that needs caregivers,
Right.
and then what do you get tempted to do? And that's to compromise. And what we've tried to do, and it's really because someone has to do the care,
Right.
and we can't find that. That's why there is a really important element that I was talking about first, which is big but small, doing the right things as far as for people, having integrity, what you do. But one of the things that we're committed is to, you know, um, to not compromise. Now we may have to change things a little bit, but we're in, throughout this whole process, we've really made a big effort not to compromise what our values are and stuff. So, our percentage of hires is extremely low compared to those who apply to us. There's a big delta there. And because we're trying to be choosy, we're trying to be picky with what we do. And that's always what we've done. And we have things that we do to try to weed out people that would not be someone that you would want to take care
Sure.
of a loved one. But a lot of people say, look, I need someone, and they will then, just grab onto someone, hoping, and hope's a terrible strategy, but hoping that that person is going to somehow work out. And then you hear the stories that are really awful.
Right.
And, I mean, we're really selective, and we still, will have that occasional stray. And I'll tell
Sure.
you, every time that is, it's like, how do we prevent someone who is not up to our standards to, that might slip through,
Right.
what is it that we need to do so that we prevent, someone that isn't, someone that I would want to work with my own family member working, out in the field representing us and doing stuff. And fortunately, it's rare. Does it happen? Yeah, because you can't be perfect with
Right.
doing it.
Absolutely.
But do we keep on perfecting what we do? Absolutely. But here's the next thing, which is we are very, very careful in in not compromising and getting good people in the process and following our strategy and how to do it. And what we realized a while ago is, as we were hitting walls and as we were struggling with trying to remain with our standards and stuff like that, that we just had to work even harder, you know, do more interviews, do like up our game,
Right.
with how we do it. And we've been successful. We're remaining, able to fill our shifts, but not with that thing of like, oh, I can't believe I hired that person.
Right.
I never want to be in that position where I can't feel confident with the people that we put out there. Now, there is, one of the things that I also feel is that when we hire someone, we also need to know that it's also the match. So we have some people that would be a really good match with one person, but really would not be a good match with
Right.
another. And that's where you have to have the talent to be able to say, okay, this is a good fit here, but nah,
Yeah.
not with Mr.
Exactly.
Jones.
Yeah.
This is because their personalities aren't going to get along. So, there's, so when you do the hiring, you also have to know that there's the matching part that's
Right.
really important. And if you don't match up right, you're going to have, you're going to have problems there because it may not be the wrong, that individual that you're doing may not be wrong. They're just wrong for that individual,
Exactly.
you know.
It's interesting that you say that because as I started coaching, I've chosen two areas of expertise I want to be in. And one is working with the parents of special needs children,
Mm,
helping them find um, the joy, the relaxation, the things that they need, things that a lot of us, and me included, as I was raising a child on the spectrum, thinking, I don't get to do any of these things until he gets older. And
right.
it's like, you know, you start to get angry. But I'm also working with seniors because I realize it's never too late to do the things that we want to do. But I've had to turn a few people down on both sides because I know we are not a good fit. And I know people sometimes will say, I don't like when that happens. Okay. I, you know, chose a doctor because my insurance company said that person would be good. And, I find out that the doctor wants to refer me to somebody else. You
Hmm.
know what? Let's be honest about it. We all have likes and dislikes. Don't we want to find the best match we can? It may not be perfect,
Right.
but let's find the best match so we can both get something out of the relationship.
Yeah.
And so not everybody's going to fit into your model, but at the same time, there are plenty of individuals who will.
Right. Yeah. And I think that I can't emphasize how important match is, and someone today said, what's your criteria, or what is your actually it was a little bit different. They were saying, kind of, the oh, I know what it was, your demographics.
Mhm.
I said, I said, we have people that are 18 and we have people that are 87,
Yeah.
that we that are our caregivers. And I said, and everything in between. And the big thing is that we want the right fit in these circumstances. And and we have people that have an eighth grade education, and we have people with multiple master's degree. Actually, we have retired nurses and physicians and others that work with us. So we literally have the gamut. And how do we fit those people? Well, we fit people based on a whole set of criteria, how technical the person needs, help, and personality, and all sorts of things like that. But and let me tell you that matching piece is not easy,
No, it's not.
because what that means is you have to think through a whole bunch of things. You have to think through the schedule. Is this the right schedule for it? You have to think, do they have the right techniques to be able to do more of the technical part of things for this particular client? Then you have to look at the personality. You have to look at location. Like, are they close enough that to this individual that they're not going to be, calling off because of a snowstorm,
Sure,
and
exactly.
things like that, that all play a big role in it, and then it comes down to personality. But if you're looking at personality, that means you need to know the personality of the
Right.
individual. That's why, you can't just randomly select someone, because they're available and say, oh, that's going to be a good fit. Well, no, that's going to be probably a terrible fit because
Exactly.
you're not thinking through. And that's why, you have to have a human being that understands the, the client's needs and their personality and temperament, and then the caregiver's personality and temperament and skill sets and all the other factors. And, that's that's
It
that's a
takes
big task. Yeah.
it absolutely is. And
Yeah.
what so many people don't realize, that's a cost
Mm.
going in the business. Because I've heard it even for myself when somebody will say to me, well, you provided me, 3 mini sessions so we get to know each other to see if it's a good fit. And I say, yes, one of the things I do is the mini sessions are free. It's to make sure that there's a good communication. But I try to also explain to them that my fee is going to reflect that. And
Mm.
eventually, because it is a business, but at the same time, I want to make sure it's a good fit. So, you know, and I'm sure that's part of what you go through too. You try to get to know who the caregiver is very well and who the individual is. And sometimes it's not just the individual, it's the family members as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's the whole picture. This is not just, it's 3D,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
because of that 3D nature, again, and I don't do the scheduling, and frankly, I've told many people you wouldn't want me to do the scheduling. No, you wouldn't. That's not my gifting. That's
Yeah,
not what I can do it. Yeah. And will I get the job done? Yeah. And will I do well? Yeah, because I'm gonna try to think through until I get it right, for it. But I have people that this is what, the this is what their skills are in,
right.
and we work on
Exactly.
developing those skills and making sure that goes well. But in the end, here's kind of the idea. I don't care if it's home care, or if it's in a facility, or if it's whatever thing that you're applying or overlaying, these things better be there. And you need to have these elements, I believe, or it's not going to function well. I think we're in a time right now of a lot of transition, and just transition in society, and these elements are universal. I think that
Yeah.
they're very important because it's going to be what makes things work or not work when it comes to helping people, um, and specifically helping people that are aging. And so, the being good is hard.
It is hard, but
So,
you continue to work at it. And I think that is absolutely wonderful. Um, Thank
well,
you again for a great conversation. And this conversation is global. So it doesn't just pertain just to the Northeast Ohio area. So I hope our
right.
listeners take it to heart and use the information that's been provided.
It's great. Well, enjoy the day and the weather. It's beautiful
It
out
is.
today. So I know people aren't going to be listening to it necessarily today, but at least today for us, it's really nice. So
It
thank you.
absolutely is.
Okay,
Have a
take care.
great day. Take care now. Bye
All
bye.
right, bye-bye.